they'll be able to log in.
If we see them as attendees, you can upgrade them to a presenter. So that's what I did with you, Henry. You came in as an attendee, so I upgraded you.
Oh, thanks.
I sent it to Kate as well, just to make sure, because I don't know what Neil's done. So anyway, I've sent Kate the link.
Right. So we have 2 people waiting at the moment. 3. Well, we'll open the doors at 2 o'clock, shall we?
Yes.
Oh, there's an unlock button at the top of the screen. Maybe that's the.
Oh, that's probably the one.
Oh, yes.
That probably lets everybody in.
Oh, I think there's about.
You're getting very good there, Henry.
Just watching an imminent collision here with a white van reversing speedily into somebody's drive and somebody coming down their own drive.
That sounds like a potential for too much excitement.
That's the only problem here, because I'm on a noisy high street and I can't easily mute right now.
Are you in Somersham?
Yeah. Yeah, I live on the high street, which is noisy these days.
Yeah, I saw you there last at the training. Can't remember which one it was, actually, a little while before lockdown. And I thought you said you live there.
Cool. Yeah, that's the only disadvantage of being over the front here. It's quite fascinating to watch everybody, but not good when you want to be quiet. So we've got 9 people waiting.
How long is it set to last, and are we doing it once? Yeah, we're just doing it once, and in theory it lasts an hour and a half, but we'll finish it when it finishes.
All right, I wasn't sure because I thought it's quite a long time, isn't it?
That's what we thought. Yeah.
That's why I wondered if we were doing it twice.
And if you can't have a really good interaction, because we can only do it by the chat, it's not so easy, is it, to string it out? I mean that in a nice way, you know. But I think after each bit we'll have to pick up questions, Henry. I'm happy to scroll through and find questions.
Henry, just to say, and Penny, I thought Kate and Neil can talk a lot about the Good Neighbour scheme, and obviously I can input because we're doing it. But from our perspective, we're also doing the Langdyke John Clare partnership, so I thought I'd talk about that one. And the Bright Ribbon, which was everyone's obviously done a lot with COVID, but that was helping middle of Peterborough as well. So
yeah, I think the Bright Ribbon's a good one to talk about. I think your community planting exercise is a good one. Yeah. And the John Clare is part of that.
Yeah.
If Neil and Kate don't make it, then perhaps you could.
Yeah, I'll cover that as well. Yeah.
But
I think the good thing is just to demonstrate to people how many different ways there are of engaging with your community, and you know.
But I think the Bainton and Ashton one is instructive in that you're a relatively small council, which is
we've got very little money. We get £9,000 a year, but we really work hard at participation, getting people involved.
That's great. That's great, isn't it? Because often you hear, we're far too small.
Yeah. And grabbing, taking opportunities to get money. It's interesting. Our ward fund, Councillor Over's fund, nobody else asked for it. So I asked for one lot, and then nobody wanted the rest. So I asked for the rest.
Well done, you.
If you don't.
It's a well-kept secret, that, because we don't even know about the ward councillors.
Well, he does tell us, to be fair, at the ward we do Zoom ward meetings, and he does tell us. So, but you have to have something. We've always got loads of things we could have it for, so we just ask. Yeah.
I think it might be time to let people in.
Right, I'll press the unlock button, see what happens.
Okay.
Nothing. Oh yes. Okay, right. I think we're on.
I think we are, Henry.
Right. This is a bit like flying blind because I don't know whether we've got anybody watching or listening, but I think we have. So, welcome to workshop number 3, which is about helping your council to do more for your community. So we've got Penny and me are the hosts, if you like. We've got Susie Lucas from Bainton and Ashton, who can tell us about what's been going on in her council. But just to start with, I thought I'd cover what I see as the theme of this workshop. It's about what have you done that's sort of new or different from what you did before. So what have you done? We're looking for examples of that. But equally, what would you like to have done but weren't able to for some reason? And what was the reason you weren't able to do these things you'd like to do? Was it the financial side of it? You didn't have any money? Was it because there were obstacles in the way? I don't know, planning permission or some bureaucratic red tape you had to get through? Was it that you had lack of knowledge of what could be done and how to do it? Or was it because you had lack of people, lack of volunteers, lack of time from the clerk? There's all sorts of reasons why you sometimes can't do things. So I'd be interested to know that. So if you've got anything you'd like to say, can you put it in the chat box? Any comments, good, bad, crazy, doesn't matter. Just put them down and we'll have a look at them. And then if you actually want to speak, let us know by putting a message in the chat box, and we can bring you online so that you can speak. So if you could tell us what you want to talk about, that would be helpful. We've got a couple of speakers already lined up to talk about examples that we think are interesting that we've done in their parishes. But the real aim is to collect these ideas together and share them amongst ourselves, because a lot of us sort of exist in a little parochial bubble and don't really get to talk to other parishes nearby. So that's what I see as part of the role of this workshop, is to try and collect ideas and find a way of sharing them in the future, all year, not just at the conference. So, okay, I think I'll hand over to Penny now.
There's just a quick request from Yvonne Murray. She said, could you show the first slide again, please, Henry?
Well, I think
it was just a welcome slide, Yvonne.
That's literally the first slide.
The next one, she's saying.
Right, that's the first one with anything of substance on it.
And the next one, please.
And that's the last one.
So it's just to reiterate, really, popping any questions, chat, ideas, what you've done in your parishes in the chat box would be great. And we'll stop every now and again to check those out. So I'm just going to change to my presentation now. Hopefully is this one. Okay. So this session is about strengthening your community. So it's I'm going to give you a few ideas of things for you to think about, and maybe it will jolt thoughts of what you've done or could be doing in your own communities. And it's really maintaining actually that community confidence in whatever the new normal might be post COVID-19, as well as it looks like we've got to carry on with this for some time. So how do we go about doing that in an effective way? So a very quick reminder of town and parish councils have a number of powers and duties in statute. So duties are mandatory things that we have to do as councils. And there aren't many duties. They're things like you have to have a chairman, you have to have 4 meetings a year, including your annual meeting, although that's been suspended in the temporary regulations this year. A duty to consider biodiversity, that sort of thing. And powers, you have a vast range of discretionary powers that you can choose to use. You're not obligated to use them, but you can choose to use them for the benefit of your community. And some of the excellent projects we've heard about today of the volunteer groups and COVID-19 groups, time banking, etc., have been set up under discretionary powers. And the very simple one for that, under the Local Government Act 1972, Section 112, is the power to appoint staff to undertake whatever services you feel are appropriate for your council. So in the first instance, every council can choose to do that. Right. So the second thing we need to be looking at, if you haven't done it already, and it's quite a big bit of work, is your community profile. How well do you actually know the community where you work or live? Did you know before lockdown how many people there were in your community that needed help? So this really is you thinking about, if you haven't already, your community's characteristics and the assets. And that's not just the physical assets in your community, it's those people assets as well. What can you tap into there to help you? So the start of this is community profiling or community mapping, investigating the demographics of your place. I think Jo in the Cottenham one, because I didn't have a chance to watch all the films this morning, but she said they've got quite an old population. Now, clearly they've done some work on that, but if you've got an older population, or is it a very young population, you've got to think about the different age groups, their wants and needs. Have you got a lot of unemployed people? So these are all things you'd be researching and asking yourself initially. And the range of community groups and organisations you've already got in your parish. Hugh, if you were listening to the panel meeting, simply mentioned the churches and parish and town councils. But if you think about your own communities, you've got a lot more groups in there, such, you know, from Mothers Union to, I don't know, the Knitting Circle, the WI, Carnival Committee, whatever it is, you've all got a lot of groups in your parishes and a lot of people in those groups with really good key skills that you also might be able to tap into. And then the structure of local government. So that's not just down at the first tier for us town and parish councils, but district, county, what can they do to help you in your community? What do they already do, or what do they not do? Is there any funding in any of those other levels that you can tap into? For example, the county council have the Innovate and Cultivate Fund, where you can get 50% funding towards a group such as, I believe, good neighbourhood schemes, time banking, etc. So you need to be thinking about all of that for your community. And a good place to start, if you don't know, is Cambridgeshire Insight. They've got some, for every parish in Cambridgeshire, they have a parish profile. So that will give you the basic information about your parish. And it's a really good resource to as a starting place. You've got the national statistics as well, but a lot of that work Cambridgeshire Insight have done for you, which is great. So community engagement. How well does your council collaborate with others in the community? These are all questions for you to think about. Is there a reciprocal relationship or sense of cooperation between your council and a wide range of people and organisations in your community? If not, what could you do about it? I mean, and one idea is to call an open meeting and actually invite every single organisation and group that you are aware of in your community. Personally invite them, but also put it out as an advert and get everybody together to see what you're all doing and how maybe you could all do it better and together, or maybe not. Just hopefully everyone will want to work together. And your council, so how does it ensure that there's a mutually beneficial exchange of knowledge and resources? It's better that we're all pulling together than pulling apart. And finally, did your council take ownership or leadership of a COVID-19 volunteer group or service? Did they take up that emergency action, or did they leave others to do it? Did they join in towards the end, or have they still not become involved? Be really interested to hear from all of you on how your councils or yourself personally dealt with that. And what did you learn about the people in your community during lockdown? From my experience, I'm a clerk at Somersham, and we thought we knew quite a bit about our community because we've had a time bank for a good number of years. But still, there were a lot of people in my community that we weren't aware of, that had no help. And these are all important things to try and discover about your community. And were you surprised about the number of people who had to self-isolate? We certainly were. And many councils took on that volunteer aspect of coordinating the help to shop, collecting prescriptions, walking people's dogs. That was a big one for us as well. And maybe just that social call. Absolutely loved, like many others did, that bench where people could just sit and talk. That was terrific. So we can all learn from each other on these things. But it's getting to know your own community and building on that and keeping it up to date, if you like. So really, what did your council do? What could it do better? Or do you think you actually did everything you could do? Or do you not feel that this is a role of the town or parish council? Do you think other people should be responsible for that? Perhaps you could let us know in the chat and we can pick that up. And so community empowerment is central, giving people more power in their lives. And this can help your council design and run public services that are better tailored to the people that use them. And this will also help you tap into those funding sources, because it doesn't have to be all funded through the precept. There are options out there to help your councils. And this sort of brings us on very loosely to managing social distancing, which seems to change day by day, or certainly week by week at the moment. Making sure that you're aware of what you can and can't do. For town and parish councils, the first thing was working from home for those that didn't work from home, and those who had staff is how did you cope with that? And are you managing a staged way of going back to work? And reopening facilities and the challenges that faces. So for every community opening their facilities, there is going to be a different way of doing that. And I did find one of the best documents to use was a Cambridgeshire Acre document, actually, which they'd adapted following government advice. That's been a terrific one. So at the end, we've all got to think about what is the new normal? What are we going to be doing going forward? And should we be maintaining these volunteer groups? And in my opinion, absolutely should be, because it just keeps us more connected as a community. And I think for those communities where they didn't have some sort of organisational group, whatever it might have been, to cope with lockdown, I think in the early stages it was much more difficult for them. So if you haven't got something in place, or even if you have, keeping on top of that community mapping of your town or parish and how you could do things better or the same is absolutely vital. So again, a little bit loosely, recruiting new councillors. Do you think, through all your actions over the last few months, that this has increased the visibility of your council? And do you think this is a way and an opportunity to harness new councillors? Many of us have vacancies on our councils, and many people, unfortunately, don't truly understand what they do for their communities. So do you think this is a great opportunity to try and retain these people who volunteered and stepped up to the plate in such a terrific way? How do we keep hold of them? So that's it for me for the minute, and I shall look through the questions and hand back to Henry.
Right, thank you, Penny. So that was quite thought-provoking questions there. I don't know that we've all got answers to them, but they're all highly relevant, I think, to parish councils and how they should be working for their communities. I'd just like to invite a couple of people to tell us about what they've done in their parishes, just to sort of get the ball rolling and give you some ideas, and then we can go into a more of a discussion, I think. So I'd like to invite Susie Lucas from Bainton and Ashton Parish Council, who are a relatively small council, a few hundred residents, but they have been doing quite a lot of things engaging with them. So perhaps over to you, Susie.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Henry. I'll start off by talking about some of the projects that we've been engaged with. And as Henry said, we are very small, only 127 homes and a very small budget, about £9,000. So we obviously seek opportunities for funding, and we have to engage with our residents and community and get them involved, and they have done so. They really have been fantastic in the things they get involved with. Before I took over as chair, there was more of a culture of doing the councillors taking action and doing things themselves, and with that expectation. But we've been able to shift that to get more and more people involved. One of the things we got involved in early on, and I won't go into detail because Neil Boyce from Castor will talk about it, is the Good Neighbour scheme. So as we went into the lockdown and COVID, we'd begun working to ask for volunteers to work with the community to support each other as part of the Rural Parishes of Peterborough Good Neighbour scheme. But I won't go into that. But building on from that, which was helping each other in our community, we got involved with the City Council with the Bright Ribbon scheme, where we actually collected food to go into Peterborough. We weren't sure how that would work, but there was a great need in Peterborough for the food bank and for food. And there were people in our villages wishing very much to help, and an easy way to help. So it engaged a lot of people and who are now involved in other things, but people left bags of food on their doorstep that were collected by residents, by volunteers each week, and then they were collected by Peterborough to go to the food bank. And that was really good. We did wonder whether people would want to do that because it wasn't going to our own community, but into Peterborough. But that worked really, really well, and it involved a lot more people that hadn't been involved. And I think that has been key to getting other initiatives off the ground. talk about another initiative, which is our bloom planting and now leading into our parish nature recovery plan. Last year, we applied for a grant because I always look for opportunities for funding, as I'm sure you all do. The community engagement funding from Peterborough City Council. So I know lots of planting goes on. I'm sure you're all doing things, but we wanted to do it very much involving the community. So last year we planted bulbs and trees and shrubs, and the aim, and groups came, family groups. We had 50 people who came out, and they all shared coffee and refreshments. And the idea was to then have an open village this spring, and we were going to invite communities from Peterborough to encourage diversity and cohesion. And we had links with the mosque and various other community groups. Unfortunately, as you'd imagine, that the open village didn't happen. However, we did have a great amount of success in our own village in the number of participants. And we've now got involved in the Langdyke Trust John Clare Countryside project to improve the nature and the habitat and the environment across the 16 rural parishes to the north of Peterborough, northwest of Peterborough, and all 16 have signed up. And we're working on a nature recovery plan and to work with farmers, landowners, residents to improve the environment for the whole area. And we've got the big estates like Milton and Burley and Walcott Hall on board. But I'll tell you about last Saturday when, despite the current situation, we once more did planting, but it was much broader, linked to our plan, the areas we wanted to improve as part of the plan. So we had safe bubbles, teams, family teams, people that were in groups, planting all around the villages, clearing verges, planting much more emphasis now on wildflowers, natural plants, and people were giving pollinated plants to take home to their garden. So that has been something that has got a lot of people. Again, we had 50 people when you think we've got only 127 homes. So I think we put a lot of our energy, and I'm very, very fortunate with the people here, into getting people involved and not just doing it for people, and also accessing support and money where we can. We always have projects ready that we'd like to get some funding for. But it is, as you know, it is hard work, and it's fortunate that people knock on doors, specifically ask people to get involved and specifically what they might do, and that works really, really well. We find you can't wait for people to come forward. If you specifically ask them, they will. And so that's what we feel some of our achievements, though I know there's huge, when I hear of bigger councils and some of the things that are going on, it feels quite small. But I think we think we're doing quite a lot, and we're doing it together. So I'll stop there, and Neil can talk about in more detail the Good Neighbour scheme.
Okay, thank you, Susie. So next we have Neil Boyce from Castor Parish Council. He can tell us about the long road to setting up a Good Neighbour scheme, which is acquired charitable status and is now actually got a coordinator employed to connect the people who need the help with the people who are willing to give it. And it's a really inspiring story, and it's really gaining momentum. And it's very similar to perhaps what you do informally, but this is a good structure, I think. So over to you, Neil.
Thank you, Henry. I am chair of Castor Parish Council, but I also am a co-opted member on the Adult and Community Scrutiny Committee at Peterborough City Council. And during my work with the City Council, you could see that the pressures were gaining on Peterborough City Council's adult social care team to provide assistance to the residents. So I went away and spoke to the parish council, and we came up with the idea of a Good Neighbours scheme, initially for just the parish of Castor. So we started that. We spoke to residents to gain if there was a need and a desire to have such a scheme. And we also spoke to the rector. And many years ago, the church used to run a way warden scheme, which was to deliver an information pack to all new residents of the parish. So we then moved forward and started to develop the Good Neighbour scheme. and was approached by various parish councils, one being Susie's parish council and also Aylesworth, to see if they would like to join us. So subsequently they did. We soon realised as a group of trustees that the scheme was getting too much for a parish council and a parish council clerk to administer. So we then decided to open it up slightly wider than that and actually attempt to get charitable status, working quite closely with the PCVS and also Peterborough City Council. In November of last year, we achieved charitable status, and the scheme's basically going to be, there's trustees, I think it's 6 trustees, a paid coordinator who we appointed in July of this year. But we also have so it now covers 5 parishes, and we have 3 parishes waiting to join us now. So recently we made the decision to change the name of the charity to the Good Neighbours Peterborough, rural Peterborough charity, so we can actually act as an umbrella for further charities to come under the same constitution as we've got now. And the scheme is to provide short-term practical assistance to our residents, but also to act as a conduit to statutory and other volunteer services, such as adult social care. I've just actually been talking with Age UK, and they're really interested in becoming a partner with us. So that's an overview, and it will eventually be looking after about 10,000 residents or their families. So I think that's any questions I'm more than happy to come back to people on. Over to you, Henry.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Now I'm going to try something risky here and turn this into a discussion rather than a presentation. I don't know if that's possible, but that means everybody should be able to see everybody else. Let's see. Right. So if anybody's got a question or a comment, perhaps they could say who they are and where they're from and to whom you're addressing the remark, and then we'll see what happens. Oh, perhaps that didn't work.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, I think we have to press the button ourselves to turn the audio on.
Oh, right.
I'm Yvonne Murray from Hidston and Impington Parish Council. Can I ask Susie a question?
Yeah.
So I'm really interested about specifically asking people, and it reminds me of my mum. And the reason it reminds me of my mum is last year, I persuaded her to try to help with the beer festival at 80. And she said, I'm only going to help. She said, if I have got something to do. And we found with a lot of our volunteers that, you know, they volunteered, but we couldn't set them to work in a productive way. So they felt, you know, that they weren't helping. Can you tell us a bit more about this specifically asking? Because I think it's a great strength.
Yes. We looked at different things that everybody could do. Certainly with the volunteering to support residents, we obviously encouraged some people we're doing phone calls, as you know, for people who weren't going out. They were ringing people who wanted conversation and contact and who might be missing that. So we specifically look for things that different groups of people can do. But with our, you know, we got some new people through our list of volunteers. We looked at the people that might go around and pick up the bags of food. I did look at, you know, some of the younger people who were willing to do that, drive around, people that had never done anything before in the village. And now one of them is, I'm going to see him later, hopefully to be a parish councillor. So we got some volunteers, then we sort of targeted what we knew about them, you know, trying to get younger people involved and specific things they might do. And we were lucky. We've got somebody organising our bloom and the planting. One person who was very happy to knock on doors and say, will you? The planning was, especially this time, was very detailed, and it is a lot of detailed work, I think, to get people involved. You can never underestimate, can you, how much work you need to put in. But everybody was allocated an area, were given whatever it was. Would you like to plant some bulbs here or some wildflowers? And it was so planned, so every group knew exactly what they were doing and how they were then going to get involved with refreshments and seeing our display of our nature recovery plan. So it was very well planned, but in discussion with everybody on the doorstep, a lot of that, having got the list of people. So I suppose it's that level of engagement and about what different people are interested in. And also we move further forward now, involving other groups, because I'm sure you won't be surprised, but even in small villages, different groups don't talk to each other necessarily. So to get sort of the village hall reading room group involved, they were really interested, enthused by the nature recovery plan. So an IT guy is working really hard on presenting that and what it looks like. And so I guess, and there's probably an advantage in being, there's, a lot of drawbacks to being small, but there's also advantages in that we do know, we know people well. But it's breaking it down. So, and even here, people know the 6 houses around them, so they're kind of linked up with the person they know and might need help in that area and communicating. But it is a lot of work, and you need, we get good teams who are willing to do that. But there's so many things that people have been enthused about. That's been good. I don't know if that answers it.
No, it really does, because as you say, groups don't speak to each other. So to bring them together through that planning is great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think there's a reluctance to buttonhole people sometimes.
You can't be proud. You just have to ask. I don't often say no, I have to say.
Not sure if we've lost Henry there. I think we might have lost Henry there. Does anyone else want to ask a question or share something that they've been doing in their community? Or
can I ask you a question, Penny, about something you were saying earlier? Sorry, my name's Bob Jewell. I'm Chair of Great Staunton Parish Council.
Hello, Bob.
Hi. You were talking about the general power of competence. If we, I suspect we're going to go into more of an economic problem as opposed to a health problem. We've had probably both, but I mean, we started with a health problem, now going to move on to an economic problem. If we got specific areas of families who are destitute or whatever, did you actually say you can't give money to a specific person or a specific group of persons from a parish council? You can only give it to an organisation. Is that what I understood? Yeah.
Because it has to be of commensurate benefit to your entire community, and giving it to an individual or family wouldn't comply with the law. So in order to be able to do that, your council would have to be eligible to use the general power of competence. And to have the general power of competence, you need a qualified clerk. So that's CLCC qualification or above on the community governance degree. And 2/3 of your councillors elected at the last election, not co-opted.
Okay. And what was the
qualification?
Yeah,
it's CLCC, so that's the Certificate in Local Council Administration.
Right, is that the one you get on the course? You go with...
Yeah, Capalc run the training course.
Right.
And the CLCC, which is the Society of Local Council Clerks, together with Ascentis, they actually... are responsible for the qualification. It is a proper qualification. It's equivalent to an A level.
Right. I think I went on it. That's what I just wanted to confirm.
It's in statutes. It's the only thing that's in statute for a qualified clerk. Interestingly, oh look, Yvonne's put the link up there.
Right, thanks. Okay, yeah, thanks. In fact, we probably have, because I think we did get 2/3 elected, and I think our clerk is qualified. But obviously, I can confirm that if should there be any need. Yeah.
Well, you have to agree that you are eligible. It has to feature on your minutes. Has to be a resolution on your minutes, and the clerk has to have. I don't know your clerk. I might know her or him. Has to have passed Section 7 subsequent to 2013 when the legislation changes. So if they didn't update Learning Outcome 7, then their qualification is no longer valid and up to date.
Fine, that's helpful. Thank you.
But we can help with any training because we're the county training partnership for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough on behalf of the CLCC. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, yes. I see Susie's put a question up there for you, Yvonne. Which parish are you from? Do you want to put it in the chat box? Oh,
Histon and Impington.
All right.
Oh. Brilliant. Okay, can I help anybody else here? I see we've got 22 people in the session, so I'm sure there must be somebody out there with a burning question, or tell us what you've done in your council or what you're doing. Any volunteers? If you should be able to click on your little video box and microphone if you wanted to join in.
I mean, if nobody else wants to comment, Penny, but I just comment on one thing that we found. We had a volunteer group who immediately sprung up, and the parish council offered support to them in terms of facilities to print leaflets and distribute and things like that. They ran themselves, and that was great. And obviously there's a lot more people being involved. But one thing they did find, they didn't have a huge uptake. Now, I'm not, I only hope we didn't miss people, but I just wondered if other people actually didn't have a huge uptake of people desperately needing prescriptions or shopping or whatever. I mean, there was an element of it, but I think a lot of people did it informally with neighbours or relatives. But I just wondered if other people had a much higher level of uptake. I appreciate we could have done a lot more, but because I heard so much more that other people did this morning. But it's just interesting to see what the level of uptake was in other villages.
Has anyone got anything to comment on that? I think it's been pretty variable. We've heard some excellent examples today, haven't we? I know in my village, we had a volunteer group set up through a Facebook page, and then suddenly I think it overwhelmed them altogether and asked us if we could take it on, which actually was quite good because then we didn't have to run two together. And maybe because we already had a time bank going for some years, there was more knowledge of that and therefore more people came forward. I don't know. I certainly know my time bank coordinator was inundated with requests. So it was quite manic. But it's, yes, how do we make ourselves more visible, isn't it? And I can see there's a question from David on here, and it's a good one for all of us. How can we persuade our residents to vote? Do they know what we're all about? I mean, it's a big thing, isn't it? Perhaps this pandemic and our input of what we're providing our residents might make us more visible. Anyone want to comment on that? No?
So I will, but it'd be great to hear from other people. since we joined the parish council, we've done a lot of work on making sure that we're communicating using our Hi people, our Histon and Impington people on Facebook. So we're getting there and feeding back to them and making ourselves much more visible. And we have started now to have comments about the fact that they actually know us, they actually know the parish council. So even the landlord of the local pub now says, oh, I can see that you're actual people rather than just an organisation. So it's getting out there, it's saying hello to people every day. And yesterday, another pub raised a point about the food trucks having to pay money, and it was causing issues because they were protecting their businesses. And people have started raising things to us, whereas they didn't in the past. So just being there every day and championing the parish council seems to be working somewhat.
Yeah, it's becoming more visible, isn't it? Seems to be the key, yeah. Anyone else want to comment on that? About you, Mike? I see you popped up there.
We use all our social media to connect to the village. So we've got a parish council page, a village page, and I've got a personal councillor page, and we put everything on social media so the community know what's going on with planning, what's happening in the village, why are we doing this, and we get a lot of feedback from them.
That's good.
Penny?
Yeah, carry on, Neil. Yeah.
I think one thing that we've found, especially in Castor, is parish councils are seen by residents or contacted when there's a problem. And hopefully the parish councils can resolve the problem. But I think what parish councils ought to do is actually champion their successes to the public, because I think a lot of people don't understand the actual work we do. They only see the negative side when we can't do something. So I think when we haven't managed to achieve something, it needs to be publicised throughout the parish so they have trust in us and we are doing our best. Yeah,
absolutely. I think we're not very good at congratulating ourselves on doing something positive for our communities, are we? And we really should be much better at that. And that's one of the reasons we'd love at Capalp to have your stories and case studies of what you have done, are doing, thinking of doing, so we can build on that, let others know, and we can all learn from, what worked well, what didn't work. Because invariably some of these things have teething problems, don't they? I just wondered, Bob, with yours, just thinking about it now, do you think there was this worry? You said that informal arrangements probably went on with shopping, etc. Do you think there was a security worry that maybe, people coming in that they didn't know might have been an issue? I don't know.
I don't think so. We're a relatively small village, so I mean it's about 800, nearly 900 population. So we have less difficulty in people knowing people, because probably everybody knows the parish council just by dint of the fact there's one on their street or something like that. So I doubt whether it was that. I don't know. I mean,
it's interesting, isn't it?
But I think there was a lot of people who knew somebody next door, and therefore they looked after the person next door without any other organisation being involved. And that's what happens in a smaller, a bit more.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Sorry, who is?
Robert Murden from Little Grand.
Hello.
I'd just like to say about the community, certainly in the coronavirus stage, we did have a surrounding villages plus Little Grandson, Great Grandson with the Bluebell group. But from the volunteers, there was a lot of people who did the shopping, pick up prescriptions. One lady actually volunteered to do the paper round for the village, where, as before, we would have to travel to the shop.
I think on the parish council or attention for the parish council, we are a very small community. I think there's only 169 houses. But we find that everybody knows the parish council when there's a major problem, whether it be planning or anything else. In fact, we have 2 farmers on our parish council, and we all say when some of the community don't know the parish council, we all say that these farmers ought to put in planning permission for 2 fields for residential, and then we'll have a village hall full of residents. So it seems that the attention is got when there is a sensitive issue or a planning issue or something big in the village, then we certainly get the attention of the parish. So,
yes.
But we are small. Everybody knows everybody else. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing sometimes, I'm not sure. But
I think it depends on the circumstances, doesn't it? I think during lockdown it was probably a good thing, and much harder for the bigger towns and parishes, really. But it's been a very quick and massive learning curve for us all. Yeah, Susie.
I just wanted to pick up on what Helen's posted about one-to-ones and walk and talks, and that, I think, what a brilliant idea that is. And it's something we wanted to build into our parish recovery plan, and to have some walks and heritage walks, but to take people on, well, a guided walk sounds a bit formal, but to take people on small groups, on a discussion group, walking around the village, looking at the heritage sites and the orchids, the wild areas. So, because the health and well-being is key to all of this, isn't it? We want to support the health and well-being in a whole variety of ways. That we can, and cross age groups as well, and involve families. So yeah, that's great, Helen, to think about that as well. And people's stories, that's really good, isn't it?
Yeah. Yvonne.
I think Gilly was first.
Oh, sorry. Oh, you're right down in my bottom corner. Sorry, Gilly.
No. Hi there. I'm from Wickham Parish Council. So another small community, about 800 residents. And I thought Helen's comment that just popped up at the same time is really interesting, and I think a very useful idea as well. Because I was just wanting to come back to the whole issue of communication with the community, because we've started to use social media and a Facebook page a lot more than we used to. And there was also, during the whole COVID crisis, well, the beginning of it as it continues, a separate but linked Facebook page for the COVID group. And those we work very closely together from the parish council to the group. But what we have found is that it's fine going onto social media, but there is a large proportion of the population, older people predominantly, who don't tend to use that and don't look at it. And even those of us who would like to think of us as younger, I, for example, don't necessarily think to go and look at the Facebook page. If I want to know, is there going to be a horticultural show or whatever this year, I don't think to go and look at the page. And I think an awful lot of other people don't either. They wait until something's put in front of them. Now, alongside that, our local newsletter, which came out every 2 months, is now going to end because there isn't enough advertising, because the advertisers have all gone digital. So we've got a real problem, I think. And I just wondered if anyone has got any ideas, practical solutions for ways in which we can communicate in a practical way that doesn't cost the earth, because our parish council has got virtually no spare cash to support the distribution of a newsletter to every household.
There are some little pots of funds out there specifically to support COVID-related activities, and maybe that would fit with that. I mean, we found in my parish a leaflet has been really good that we drop off periodically with updates on.
Where would I find sources of funding, Penny?
With CCF, which is Cambridgeshire Community Foundation, as a starting point.
Yes.
But maybe your own district council might have something in place as well.
Yeah.
Certainly worth a look. Anyone else knows of a funding pot, then do say. But there's certainly some little pots of money out there that would assist.
Okay.
always worth looking for funding, as I think Susie there would tell you, being also from a small council, that there is money out there for you.
And also your ward councillor should have a community fund. We've got funding from that.
Oh, is that the district council, Susie?
Yeah, yes. Well, and you'd have a county councillor in your case, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yes, because
they usually have a pot of money. They can give some to the parishes or to community groups.
Okay, brilliant.
It's well worth contacting everybody and anybody, really.
Quite,
I would say.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Just one thing we did, Gillian, and that's we've actually combined with a neighbouring parish, and we have a joint magazine with a neighbouring parish, and helps distribute the costs. We actually run it we make a small grant, about £400 or £500 to it, each of the two parishes. The rest is funded by advertising, but advertisers will come in from neighbouring towns, and there's quite a lot of businesses who will support it. So it's totally self-funded. I must admit, the two editors take virtually nothing, about £100 a year. So, but they're very good volunteers. But collaborating like that and pushing it out to some of the businesses, because they recognise it's going to a lot of the households.
Yes. Yeah.
And of course, dare I say, I know some parishes are not keen to raise their precept, but it's a good use of money to pop some in the precept for this coming financial year, budgeted in there.
Yes. Great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
So, Yvonne.
Yeah, so I'll just pick up on what Gilly said and then ask my question, which is fairly short. So Gilly, what we've done is similar to Robert. We've merged the work together with the church newsletter and the parish council newsletter. So we're sharing so that, we can use the volunteers for one newsletter rather than two. Yes. We also went to the post office, who were incredibly good, given that we're a large parish of 8,000 people. And whilst COVID was going on, they did distribute our support cards, free of charge. So it might be worth asking the post office there. Mm-hmm. And then we also had a pyramid structure for our volunteers. So the pyramid was the steering group, of which there were 5 people, and then the street coordinators. So we had 139 street coordinators. And then to Robert's point, we had the informal people working, who we just appreciated it because, they've been doing it for 20 or 30 years. We couldn't thank them enough. And a lot of those didn't want to do emailing, etc. They just wanted to do the shopping for their neighbours, which sort of built up our numbers hugely. So, and for those, we had like 139 WhatsApp groups, and we're still using them today.
139
people to talk about sewage works and all sorts of things. We're just doing the poppy appeal using our WhatsApp groups. So that's something to think about. So, absolutely. And Penny, my question was, how do we get our stories and our case studies continually coming up to Capalk so that you're hearing our voices?
Other than today, is that what you're saying? Yeah, just email. I know Sam's on this. I've seen her in the participants. If you email Sam at office@Capalk, and I think we'll set up a page on our website, and we can pop up stuff on there for good ideas and contacts, if you don't mind, so people can contact you for any tips. But we really would like some good, bad and the ugly, really. What works well, what doesn't work well. And often you find if you pick different elements from different people's groups, that you find something will work well for your community. Because not one size fits all. We're all different, aren't we? And so all ideas are welcome, really are.
Penny.
Oh, yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I think councillors now need to be more proactive than reactive. Don't actually wait for something to happen. Go out and find it before it happens. Like,
absolutely.
report all your potholes, vegetation, that sort of thing. Put it on Facebook. The public will know what you're doing and helping the community. So be more proactive than reactive.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, your councillors should be thinking about what it is that they care about in their parish, and what could they do more of or do better. So yeah, be proactive and put some sort of work plan in place. And I think the pandemic has kicked a lot of us into touch, hasn't it, really, about maybe we could be doing a bit more, or should be doing a bit more. Yes, Neil.
One thing we trialled in Castor, clearly we haven't done it this year with the COVID-19 issue, but we used to run a fortnightly councillor surgery on a Saturday or a Sunday morning, because we found a lot of the elderly people, they go to church or they go to the shops. But the trouble with parish council meetings is they're usually at night, where the elderly don't necessarily come out. So we used to do it on a Sunday morning or a Saturday afternoon, where, say, 2 or 3 councillors would attend, and the public would just drop in, have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and a biscuit, and actually not necessarily to tell us what was going wrong or what was going right, sometimes just to have a general chat. But I think that gets you out there so they actually do know you. Absolutely. I think that's a really good idea. Somebody in one of the earlier sessions mentioned about having bacon rolls on something. Can't remember what it was now. But our time bank coordinator, prior to lockdown, always used to do on a bi-monthly basis hot soup and bacon roll thing in conjunction with a different organisation in the village every time. So it could have been the church, could have been the football club, whoever, and then you're getting to see a really good mix of people, and that was really good. That doesn't cost you a lot either. No. You know, somebody makes a soup and pay for the ingredients, and it's building that social thing as well, isn't it? And there are a lot of people out there that don't see anyone from one week to the next. Yeah, we used to have an elderly lady. She's passed on now, but she used to just phone my office once a week to speak to my deputy, because she didn't speak to anybody apart from seeing her friend every 4 weeks. Otherwise, she's totally on her own, which is, you know, I think there's quite a few people like that in our communities, unfortunately. But certainly welcome anything from COVID experiences to any other sort of community engagement and activities. If you just email Paul Sam at office@capalc.org.uk, and we'll start collating them and putting them up on a web page on our website. I think would be great. So Henry, you're finally back in.
I seem to have connection problems. Everybody keeps disappearing and then comes back again, so I don't know what's going on. But I'm here at the moment.
Good. So we've just been talking about various things we're all doing, or could be doing. I don't know if you want to say what you've been doing in Peakirk.
Well, I think an idea of some place we can all go and look, and we can see links to other people and what they're doing. That would be really useful.
Yes,
and also sort of a self-help desk where somebody posts a question, like Paul Skerritt from Walton Longville says, I wanted to do a newsletter, and then, can anybody help me? And then I'm sure loads of people would come up with suggestions.
Yeah, we can.
I personally think a newsletter is a good idea. We used to do one in my parish. We stopped because the editor got too busy with climate change, and we thought that was probably more urgent. But we were fortunate in that we've only got 170 dwellings, so that's only 170 letterboxes to put it through.
Longville's a bit different, but that was my main concern, I think, Henry, as well, is Orton Longville. I know a lot of you guys are from smaller villages. Orton Longville has quite a big population, and its ways of distributing in a newsletter. And I don't know whether many people actually distribute them now, or whether they just put them online. I think a lot of the parishes now have their own websites, and I'm not sure how or what sort of uptake how they monitor whether it gets viewed or what from a website or a digital format.
Just speaking on behalf of my parish, although we haven't produced a hard copy paper throughout the pandemic because there's nothing to put in it, other than the only thing we have produced is the leaflet on how people can get help and what is out there. It's all hand delivered by volunteers, which we're slightly restricted on our volunteers because many of them are in the wrong groups, if you see what I mean, because they're self-isolating or whatever. But we've found we've had some terrific volunteers. They're given, a road or a section of a road, and 2 councillors package up all the different areas appropriately, drop them off at their houses, and they go out and deliver them. So maybe there's an opportunity for that.
And do councils that have a newsletter, do they, it's might be a strange question, but I'm really kind of new to a lot of this. So, but do they have sections in their newsletter where the actual community gets involved in the newsletter, where they put their points actually in the newsletter itself? Or is it all about the council?
Can I answer again? I'll let somebody else answer in a minute. I would say we invite people to comment, send letters or whatever. Rarely happens, I don't know why, but we always put a reply in there. So if somebody's queried something, criticised something, whatever it is, a reply and response to that will always go in there at the same time. Otherwise, it's hanging over to you until the next edition is printed. And ours is mainly community organisations and what they've been up to. We just have a page where our chairman writes a page and I'll advertise the meeting dates. But other than that, we try and make it all community orientated.
Okay. So that's my sorry, I don't want to take over too much of this on this, but my concern is if we've a message that we're trying to spread in the community, we was thinking of probably using a newsletter to do that, to get a response, but I'm not sure on how we could do that. Or is there any other platform that we could use to get a response from the communities to find out their interest in a particular topic, maybe?
You can certainly do it through your newsletter. And anything else? I can see Mike's got his hand up there.
Yeah, newsletter. You've got to use all media to get through to everybody in your community. A lot of older people won't use Facebook.
Yep.
So there's so many different ways of communicating. You could have a telephone conversation with them. It's all to do with how your community is built up. But use every media possible.
Yeah, so there's Gillian, then Susie.
Just a quick comment on that, Paul. When we started the parish Facebook and the COVID Facebook at the same time back in April, we were amazed at how quickly they took off. The younger people seemed to just find them. So people that we hadn't heard from through any other route on the parish council found the Facebook pages within days, and you get comments going back and forth, chats between them and us. But in the same way that you said, we always made a point from the parish council point of view of replying to any comment that was particularly parish council related. And that's really important that somebody keeps an eye on it. Otherwise, it gets commented on by everybody else, and you find all sorts of irrelevant and possibly other damaging comments appearing. That you have to be engaged with it. It doesn't take a lot, but you have to have someone who does that.
You certainly need to have somebody who perhaps can moderate it, yes. i.e. take off any defamatory stuff. So, and it happens. So, Susie, I think you wanted to say something there.
Yeah, I just want to add, with regard to websites, and we monitor how many hits we get, and we're I'm always surprised because we're small. We get about 100 a month, which, well, for us, that sounds like quite a lot. And with regard to, we did a survey to get some community engagement and interest. And I generally find that if you're totally open-ended about what would you like, you don't get anything. So we had discussion and honed it down to some specific ideas that we had to get feedback. And of course, when things are different, we've had much greater attendance of the public at our meetings through having different speakers at the start of the meeting. And that's worked really well. And, obviously people can suggest things to us as well. So that's good. And then you can get some debate and ideas. And then, but the best engagement is, as I said earlier, through something very specific. Let's talk about how we're going to do this specific thing. Don't be too broad. That's all I would say.
Yeah. Good tip. Yes, Mike.
Is we've all got to think about the future, because this virus is not going to go. We might be able to get vaccinated. However, it's a huge problem, and we've got to think differently in the parish council how we're going to work from now on. And people haven't mentioned about that today. It's not just recovery, it's how we're going to work in the future.
Yeah, the new normal, isn't it, Mike? That's whatever that might be. So, yeah. Bob?
I was going to say, talking about the new normal, and I honestly don't know if you do this at the moment, so if you do, I apologise. But one thing that which is going to need is more facilities for online meetings and things like that, and online interaction. Are Capel, or do they already, have a license to Zoom or something like that, which they could make available to parish councils on block, or somehow facilitate the process? A lot of parish councils, I expect the smaller ones, are using an informal Zoom account which times out after 40 minutes and you have to log back in again and things like that. I just wondered if there's a more generic way of doing it.
Well, it has been investigated by NALC, and there isn't a cheap and easy way of doing it. Capel are not VAT registered, so that wouldn't help you at all, because we'd have to pay the VAT on top. So it's almost cheaper actually to pay the $14.39 a month or whatever it is, and then claim your VAT back and view it in the same way as you would if you've got to hire a hall or pay for a hall. You've got to pay for that normally in your face-to-face. I don't think that $14.39, whatever that is, after taking the VAT off, is a huge amount at the end of the day, because you can have your working groups on there, you can have your committees on there, as well as your council meetings. And maybe if you don't have that many meetings, share a license with your neighbouring council. You've just got to agree actually that you're not going to clash on meetings, because you can't run consecutive meetings. But I think we've all got to think of it in terms of, well, normally I pay X amount to hire the room for 2 hours, which is probably not dissimilar to a month on Zoom or similar.
Okay, yeah. So,
it's not very helpful, I'm afraid, Bob. But
it's a fair answer.
I think I saw somebody else's hand, but I can't remember now.
Yeah, just a question for Susie. I don't know if she's absent at the moment. There was a question.
She's here.
Oh, okay.
Just letting the dog out.
Okay. Just 2 questions. It would be great if you could just let us know what your website is, and just on the different speakers at the meetings, encouraging people to come along. Is that at your parish council, full council, where is that you're actually encouraging people by giving them more information?
Yeah, it's both. We've done it at half an hour before a parish council meeting, and in the hope that some people stay on the meeting, which they do. But we've also organised additional speakers. Like we had a separate meeting with Neil about the Good Neighbour scheme.
Right.
But other things like Richard Astrell from Langdyke came before a parish council meeting to talk to us. So it varies. And it's the Bainton and Ashton community website. And then there's also a parish council website, Bainton and Ashton.
Great, thank you.
I think there's a surprising number of people who will come out and give these actually very interesting talks and advice for councils.
If I could just add, sorry, leaping in on that, because on that point, we also had Belinda Charles from Peterborough City Council. And one thing that strikes me hugely is there is a lot more support for residents out there than we think from statutory services and from the charitable sector. And they're willing to come and talk as well, because there is support there. And that's part of the Good Neighbour scheme, is people accessing and signposting support, not just doing it all ourselves. But they will come and talk.
Thank you, Susie. And I think Neil just had a point there as well.
Yeah. One thing we do in Castor is we always try to have something on the agenda, because some of it can be pretty mundane for general residents. Something on there that actually sparks their enthusiasm to come out, whether it's an issue they have or whether it's something we're going to be doing, to try and get them to come to the meetings or join the Zoom meeting. Because I think if it's, for us, it's not necessarily dull, but for them, it can be seen as dull. And I think if we put something there that actually sparks their enthusiasm, sparks their interest, they tend to come along. And once they get into the habit of doing it, they then just come along because that's what they do on a Thursday night, for instance.
Yeah, very good point, Neil. And I'm thinking, you know, if they extend the temporary regulations, for example, and allow us to continue with virtual meetings, and maybe the option of hybrid meeting, well, the option's there already, but carrying on. I wonder if that would really help with community engagement and that. Interesting thoughts, aren't they?
Can I just say a very simple thing we did was reordered the agenda, so the interesting topics on our projects, our villages projects, all come first, and then the boring stuff to them. So people can leave after an hour. I think it's a lot to ask of people to sit through necessarily. They don't want to sit through all of that necessarily.
It's a very good point, and it's like putting planning. If you do planning within your normal meeting, having that somewhere near the top, because. Generally, people come for the planning, don't they?
That's great. It will win you the NALC Award or the Gold Award by being that community facing. That's brilliant. It's great to hear.
Sue, down the bottom, I'll bite my screen.
We really struggle to get our village to communicate with us unless they've got a major issue. The only time they ever want to come to a meeting is if it's something they're upset about. Trying to get them to come because they should be interested in what's going on seems to be very hard. And we've got 2 vacancies at the moment. And again, trying to get people motivated to come forward. I mean, we've just gone through a whole new range of nice, young-looking type advertising for parish councillors, because again, that seems to be another problem, is getting younger people, because we're very, I could say, elderly council, but you know, none of us are getting any younger, and we do need the new people with younger ideas to come forward with us. But it's just getting them involved somehow.
It's having that mix, isn't it? Neil said about promoting the positive things that you've done for your community, so making yourself very aware there, and how do you get that diversity of councillor, you know, from gender, age, race, disabilities, you know, it's how do you get all of those people interested, and maybe the first thing is you absolutely promote all the brilliant things that you're doing, and asking those key questions to people. What do you care about your community? What would you like seen done? Maybe get a big parish poll of something going to stir people up.
Yeah, we're doing that already with the playground. That is really stirring them up.
In a negative way or a positive way?
Unfortunately, a negative way.
Oh dear. We didn't have anything to play on when I was young. Yeah. Oh, dear. So, any other thoughts? Comment? Oh, Yvonne again. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're absolutely fine.
Thank you. Just to change the tack a little bit, one of the things that I feel as a councillor is most weeks actually, I don't know much. And that because of that, I can't do the best for my council. I know that's a different tack. I came across the neighbourhood plan last week or the week before and read right through it. And it actually then I began to make sense of, the planning and actually the projects we were undertaking. It also seemed to remove some of the frustrations where we had in our council, well, that's my idea, not his idea. We were able to tie it back to the neighbourhood plan and then it becomes more collaborative. How do we, there's a lot of knowledge within CAPAL. There's a lot of resources. How could we improve the training so that we're actually perhaps rock up every month and there's a training session on a particular area that we're perhaps tested on with 10 questions so that keeps us on our toes?
I can certainly arrange that. One of the things I wanted to do before lockdown was actually have councillor briefings, if you like, or councillor brunch. So every other month, Saturday morning, have a brunch with a particular hot topic, if you like, a hot brunch, hot topic, specifically for councillors. I think it's very good for you to interact with each other and share ideas, etc., as well as keep up to date with what's going on. So, for example, one of them we could have had was the white paper on the future of planning. We do have those who are members of CAPALC, we have a free webinar on demand you can watch on that. But yes, Yvonne, it's good to know that the idea I had in my mind before lockdown would work. But so maybe I do that online. I just won't be able to give you the brunch. I already have monthly drop-in sessions, which is open to clerks and councillors anyway on a Thursday. On the third Thursday, so that was yesterday we had one, but that's open to all clerks and councillors to drop in to either chat informally, ask questions, whatever. But there's something more bespoke for councillors. Don't mind setting you up a quiz.
Great, thank you. That would nail it.
Okay. So any other ideas that you'd like to see us doing? Absolutely willing to think about and see how it would work, because I'm a big fan of community engagement, big fan of training. I don't think you can know everything. I still train to this day, so you can never be on top of everything. So we've got just 10 minutes, so if anyone's got anything they'd like to add, or whether you want to have a look around all the various booths before the end of the session. I'm not sure. I think hopefully I've answered most people's questions. I think there's a lot of concern about Zoom. I think Joe Keeler put a question up there. It's been quite difficult to try and get a deal with Zoom. I think they realise how much money they're making now. So, and some platforms work better than others, so I'm not going to suggest any is better than another. So, and I think we've all sat on zillions of virtual meetings, haven't we, over the last few months? So somebody's cat.
Unfortunately, that is mine.
That's all right. I think there's a couple of points coming in. We'll just see what those are. But would anyone like to give any sort of concluding thoughts or comments? No, it's been really nice chatting to you all. I was very worried we wouldn't be able to have this sort of face-to-face chat. Mike?
Yeah, I would advise any council now to do a neighbourhood plan, even if you have to work with the parish council next door to you, because the new planning that's coming in place is very contentious and it wipes out community engagement unless you have a neighbourhood plan. So
And
be careful.
there is funding out there, and I think it is now 10,000. I think it's been up to 10,000. You get funding to help you with your plan.
It's now 18,000.
It's 18, is it?
18 the government will give you now.
Wow, so that's, I was on something last week. They said it was 10, so 18. Wow.
18,000.
I'll see what I can put up on community neighbourhood planning and funding.
Yeah, that'd be great. Can I just ask, those of you who've done a neighbourhood plan, I'm thinking Susie particularly because you're closer in size to us, is it an awful lot of work? Because we have thought about it in the past, but our local plan through East Cams up until this latest hiatus was working well for us, so we didn't feel that we needed a neighbourhood plan. And also we're quite, there's quite a small number of councillors who would get involved in it. Is it an awful lot of work to do, or could a couple of us who were focused on it, get it together?
You would need to involve your community, get them involved. So people with the skill set to produce it will work with a couple of parish councils to get it done. But it's well worth it because East Cams at the moment haven't got a local plan in place.
Absolutely.
So
developers will have open season there.
Don't we know it?
I was going to say Susie and Henry perhaps would want to comment. Henry, definitely. So.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't done one because we are very, very small, and that it is very time consuming and a lot of community engagement, which I think there's benefit to that. And it's not something we may do one day, and we don't, because of the conservation area we're in and special characteristic, we don't see it as a huge threat, and we're doing our parish nature recovery plan at the moment. So it's something we might do. Now I hear there's all that, there's more money than I thought, because it could actually help you with community engagement and you'd have some funding. So I think we'll look at it again, but we hadn't initially thought to go ahead.
Great.
Yes, we did a neighbourhood plan. We're a community of 170 dwellings, about 400 people. We did the first one in Peterborough, one of the first ones in the county. It took us 4 years, and it took us a long time because nobody knew what they were doing. The principal authority didn't know, we didn't know. My takeaway from it is that yes, it was worth doing. The biggest benefit was community engagement. We got a lot of interest from the residents, and use consultants for drawing up the policies, especially. Employ a consultant to do that. If you've got £18,000, you'll be able to afford it. Yeah. We tried to do it all ourselves, and we got told, no, you can't write that. That's not legal. That's not watertight. But it was worth doing, definitely. And if we did it again, it'd probably only take 2 years.
Right.
I think you've got to keep them updated. I think that's the key thing that everyone needs to remember is once it's done, you can't just sit back and ignore it. It does need updating every so often.
Right. Is there funding for that, the updating? Because that's something we've been there is. Okay. Yes. In addition to the 18,000 or as part of
I am led to believe on the training I was on last week, although they've got the figure wrong, obviously, but I'm going to search it out and I'll put it up on our website, that you can certainly fund your refreshed plan through the same pot of money, I'm told. But I'll find out all that out and I'll pop it up on our website.
Brilliant, thank you.
On the news page, I think that would be the place to go.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Penny, and thanks everyone. That's great.
Thank you everyone for coming along. It's been really interesting hearing you all. If anyone didn't get a chance to say anything or wanted to add something, then absolutely do please email me. My email is ceo@capalc.org.uk, or you can find our contact details anyway on the website. But it's been terrific, hasn't it, Henry? You've been dropping in and out.
Thank you very much to our contributors and all the participants. That was really good.
Yes. Thank you very much to everybody, and Neil and Susie for presenting your bits as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.